I believe that it's possible, in spite of everything, to believe in friendship in a world without friendship, and even to believe in God in a world where there has been an eclipse of God's face. These are the words of Elie Wiesel, of blessed memory. And because this man, who experienced firsthand the worst of humanity, believed in friendship and in God, he said he had no choice but to wager on the future. To believe in the future, a bright future, and do everything in his power to bring about this bright future. If Elie Wiesel could believe in a bright future, so can each of us. We are living through really trying times, and when it comes to the future, many of us are feeling downright hopeless. But let's appreciate that the challenges we face right now, they can't compare to the barracks of Auschwitz. As dark as these days seem to be, those who have come before us have lived through much darker times. Let's go back to 586 BCE, before the year zero, as the Babylonians were beginning to destroy Jerusalem. Jeremiah, the great prophet, found himself in prison, put there because he warned his fellow Jews that Jerusalem would become a desert without anyone to live in it, that the great holy temple would be destroyed and Jewish life would come to an end. His prophecies were considered blasphemous, and this actually led to him being tossed into jail. But as he was held captive, it was clear that his warnings were correct. As the Babylonian destruction began and the Jewish future appeared grim, Jeremiah continued to do what he did. He prophesied. And these are his words. The word of the Lord came to me. Hanamel, the son of our uncle Shallum, will come to you and say, buy my land in the city of Anatot, northeast of Jerusalem, for you are next in succession to redeem it by purchase. So to be clear, the end of days appear to have arrived, and God is telling Jeremiah in his prison cell to get ready to buy some real estate. With the destruction going on at the time, I think most of us, with the exception of a few of the real estate agents in the room today, would have ignored God's word and run for safety. Not Jeremiah. His cousin Hanamel comes to the prison with the offer, and Jeremiah did as he was told. He buys the land. God further instructs Jeremiah, take these documents associated with the land you have purchased and put them into an earthen jar so that they may last a long time. Keep them safe, because soon, God said, a time will come when houses and fields and vineyards shall again be purchased in this land. God is promising a bright future. And Jeremiah, like Elie Wiesel, is willing to wager on this future. Now, while our situation can't compare to the destruction that Jeremiah experienced and the darkness lived by Elie Wiesel, it sure feels precarious out there, doesn't it? As a result, many of us are depressed. We're feeling lost. We've panicked, just like Hagar, whose despair got the best of her and kept her from seeing that right in front of her was that well of water. Over the last few years, we've run into grocery stores to hoard toilet paper and Lysol wipes, and we've noticed all of those empty shelves, and we failed to see all the vegetables and loaves of bread still there for us to consume. The politics and economics of the day, the hatred out there, it fills our hearts with fear. And this fear overshadows all the good stuff out there, and there is good stuff. The fear we have and continue to feel, it's part of our survival instinct, activating our bodies to do everything they can to protect us. But fear quickly becomes dangerous. It limits us, keeping us from seeing the big picture. We can't see that well filled with water, or that aisle filled with food, or the many blessings that will sustain us. Fear keeps us from looking beyond right now, and we can't imagine beneficial solutions to the current challenges affecting us. Fear isolates us from each other, from our community. We had to quarantine. We continue to worry about COVID as we seek out cheap gas, and we struggle to keep businesses afloat, and we worry about our personal safety and our freedoms and who is running or trying to run our country. Everyone else becomes a possible infector, competitor, or aggressor, and someone who can hurt us physically or financially or politically. And with the fear comes other overwhelming emotions: anger and self-pity and sadness and cynicism and hopelessness. We must not give in to cynicism. The words of Elie Wiesel once again. To save the life of a single child, Elie Wiesel said, to do so, no effort is too much. To take a tired old man and make him smile is to perform an essential task. To defeat injustice and misfortune, he said, if only for one instant for a single victim, is to invent a new reason to hope. A new reason to hope. It sounds good, doesn't it? Well, it's not just a dream. We had a Ukrainian child in our early childhood last year. Is Lindsay still in here? No, she's not. All right. Are any of our teachers still in here? All right. I won't call them out then. After weeks of exhausting travel to the United States, days of crying in our school as he got adjusted, I saw this little Ukrainian child smile because he felt safe, because he had friends, because he knew that tomorrow would come. We, this community, played a role in making that smile possible. We gave him hope. And for all of us who saw him smile, he returned that favor multiple times. And hope is contagious. And in this day and age where we're so afraid of all things contagious, I want to be exposed to hope. In the midst of the destruction of Jerusalem, Jeremiah purchases his cousin's land, and he planned to build a house on that land. I'm sure many said he was crazy. Many of us would have said to him, move to Canada. Move to Israel. Jeremiah, he had different plans. He was committed to teaching his people a new reason to hope. God gave humans an incredible gift, one that even the angels don't have. This gift is the ability to move forward. Angels, we are taught in our tradition, are immobile. They're stuck in time. When we're filled with anger and fear and cynicism and hopelessness, oftentimes we stop moving like the angels. But we weren't made to be like the angels. We're not made to curl up in a ball like so many of us do and get stuck. This is not what we were made for. We were made to move forward. And this is why we need a new reason to hope. And with hope, we accept our situation, we stand up and we move forward, even if we're not sure where the heck it is that we're going. Because as humans, moving forward is what we do. And you know who lives this lesson? I'm looking at her right now. Her name is Hannah Temmel. And she is, I think by records, the most senior member of our community. She can tell you firsthand what Elie Wiesel lived through. And so can her wonderful son, who's sitting next to her. And I've heard him many times say, what do? We move forward. The age of prophecy is long gone. With the exception of our real estate agents here, there is no Jeremiah out there telling us to invest in property. So where in the world do we find hope? Elie Wiesel teaches us, just as despair can be given to me only by another human being, hope too can be given to me only by another human being. Mankind must remember too, he said, that like hope, peace is not God's gift to his creatures. Peace is a very special gift. It's our gift to each other. For the same for our children and theirs, I pray that we, Elie Wiesel says, are worthy of that hope, of that redemption, and some measure of peace. I stand before you today and say each of us is worthy of hope and redemption and peace. But to obtain these things, we must wager on the future. We must invest in some land. We must buy a house. We must save a Ukrainian child. We must actively do things to wager on tomorrow. We must transform our environment so that we're surrounded by goodness. God says in the book of Genesis, it is not good that man is alone. And so the rabbis teach us that we must make for ourselves friends, acquire for ourselves teachers. We must build real relationships, strengthen our communities, and lift each other up. We must, assuming that our doctors say so, log off Zoom, go outside, and actively engage in the world around us. The late Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, the former chief rabbi of the United Hebrew Congregations of the British Commonwealth, taught us that to be a Jew is to be an agent of hope in a world seriously threatened by despair. Every ritual, every mitzvah, every syllable of the Jewish story, every single Jewish law, he said, is a protest against escapism, resignation, or the blind acceptance of fate. Judaism is a sustained struggle, the greatest ever known, against the world that is, in the name of the world that could be, should be, but is yet to be. There is no more challenging vocation. Throughout history, when human beings have sought hope, they have it in the Jewish story. Judaism is the voice of hope in the conversation of humanity. So today, on Rosh HaShanah, if you listen spiritually, God is calling down upon us to be that voice of hope. If you listen closely, God is saying the same words that God said in the book of Deuteronomy. I have put before you, God said, life and death, blessing and curse. Therefore, choose life. Choose life. While we have watched politicians and judges and activists hijack this phrase, twisting it to promote their own agendas that fly in the face of Judaism, we must redeem this phrase. It's been ours since the days of old. It's there to teach us how to reignite the spark of hope within us. Choose life. Don't sit idly by as your sister's blood is shed. Vehemently pursue justice. Get involved in selecting our nation's leaders. Vote. Don't ignore your jury duty notice. Stand up for your rights and your freedoms. Your right to choose, your right to believe, your right to worship, your right to speak openly, your right to vote, your right to gather, your right to safe drinking water and clean air, your right to send your children to school, to go to synagogue or to go out in public and not be afraid, to marry the person you love, to be the person you are, to learn, to heal, to grow, and to live both privately and openly in diverse communities. Lift up the weak. Don't separate yourself from your community, and adhere to the Jewish teaching that one has to say at least 100 blessings every day. Don't ignore the good stuff. Everything in our tradition implores us to choose, embrace, and pursue this gift of life we've been given and not fall victim to the darkness of despair. In the Talmud, we read that after departing from this world, when a person is brought to judgment for the life she lived in this world, they say to her, "Did you hope for redemption, for being saved from evil and wickedness in the world?" So this is actually a really crummy Hebrew translation of this famous text. It's not just hoping for redemption that we must do. The word for hope here in Hebrew is tzafita, which comes from the word to scout. The role of the scout is to actively engage within the world and navigate a pathway that will lead us to salvation, to a way out of this madness, to hope. We Jews, we just don't hope for a better world. Nope, that's not what we do. We Jews are supposed to actively scout out a better world by doing whatever we can to find it and bring it about and make it a reality. Over the door of the original Bratslaver synagogue in Ukraine were the words of the famous rabbi of that town, Rabbi Nachman, who said, and it said above there, "Lo tityaseh, asor lehityaseh." Do not despair. It is forbidden to despair. Robert, can we get those over our door? I'll talk to you about that later. How important are these words for the people of the Ukraine today? And how important have they been for our people for centuries? While sharing his own stories about surviving Auschwitz, Viktor Frankl reminds us how even in the darkest moment, some of our brothers and sisters lived these words. They didn't despair, and in turn, they lifted up those around them. He writes, "We who lived in the concentration camps, we can remember those who walked through the huts comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken from us but the last of freedoms, the freedom to choose our spirit in any circumstance, the freedom to bring hope in the darkest of places, the freedom to choose life. We must follow in the footsteps of our ancestors who have been through much darker times. We must, each and every single one of us, wager on the future. We must trade fear for hope. We must adopt a daily habit of saying 100 expressions of gratitude each and every day, cultivating relationships and making a difference in this world. At the end of Adon Olam, which we often sing on Shabbat and which we will actually sing at the end of our service in just a little bit, we say these words, Beyado avkid ruchi, to God's kind hand I pledge my soul. Be'et ishan ve'aira, each time I sleep, I again to wake. Ve'im ruchi gaviati, with my soul, this body here. Adonai li velo ira, God is with me, I shall not fear. As we begin 5783, our tradition implores us to make these words a reality. We're tough people, guys. We're strong. We're scouts for hope, and we believe in tomorrow, and we're committed to repairing today. God, hope, a brighter future, all of these things and more are within us and within our reach, and therefore we must not fear, we must act, and in doing so, we kindle the sparks of hope. I wish us all a year of hope as Cantor Jody leads us in these words that end Adon Olam.